My name is Maya Sterling, and I was 33 when I buried the only person who had ever truly anchored my life. My grandmother, Clara Vance, taught me how to read financial balance sheets, sew a button on a winter coat, and understand that true love is measured purely by who keeps showing up when times get tough. At her memorial service in Denver, Colorado, two prominent front row chairs remained cold and empty. I had reserved them for my parents, Richard and Eleanor. 3 hours after we laid Clara to rest, my phone buzzed with a social media notification. A photo of my parents sipping cocktails on a sun-drenched beach in Cabo San Lucas, captioned, "Finally enjoying our well-deserved freedom." Then a second text arrived. The caller ID displayed my late grandmother's cell phone number. "Come to the cottage right now, sweetheart. Bring your glasses." My heart stopped. I had held Grandma Clara's hand as she took her final breath 4 days earlier. Yet, with cold hands on the steering wheel, I drove straight to her mountain cottage. Waiting inside at her worn wooden kitchen table was her longtime estate attorney, Arthur Pendleton. On the table sat Grandma's phone and an old metal cookie tin. Arthur offered me a sympathetic smile and apologized for scaring me. "Clara instructed me to send a text from her phone the day after her service," Arthur explained quietly. "She knew it was the one number you would answer without hesitation." Inside the tin lay a navy blue leather ledger, several stacks of certified bank statements, and a notarized power of attorney document naming my mother, Eleanor, as her primary agent. Grandma Clara had begun suspecting that Eleanor was quietly draining her life savings while she was sick. "Your grandmother trusted your professional eyes, Maya," Arthur said, sliding the tin toward me. Numbers were my career. As a forensic accountant for an oversight firm, I spent my days tracking missing funds, auditing corporate balance sheets, and piecing together financial fraud from scraps of paper. That night, after my husband, Ethan, went to sleep upstairs, I spread Grandma Clara's papers across our dining table under the soft light. The ledger entries started like a frail woman's daily journal. Maya brought warm vegetable soup. Chemotherapy was hard today. Couldn't finish my toast. Then the tone shifted into something ominous. "Eleanor says I spent $800 on groceries this week. I did not leave the house. 500 withdrawn on the 4th, 4,500 transferred online on the 12th, 15,000 missing before the end of the month. She thinks I am too confused to count my own coins," Grandma had written in a trembling hand. "I am physically weak, not foolish." Every single entry matched a bank statement line item. My mother had systematically funneled Grandma's savings into an unlisted personal account in Nevada, while strictly controlling Grandma's mail, household bills, and bank notifications. Then, tucked into an old medical recipe folder, I found the final blow: a certificate of deposit that Grandma Clara had built over 45 years of working as a local school librarian. Eleanor had completely liquidated it. The total stolen $520,000. I called my mother the next morning, giving her one final chance to explain before taking legal action. When I brought up the unaccounted transfers, she didn't offer an apology. She simply laughed, her voice sharp through the receiver. "You were always Clara's little charity project, Maya," she said carelessly. "I'm her actual daughter. Whatever money she had belonged to our family anyway. Don't meddle in things you don't understand." Then she hung up. Arthur referred me to Sarah Jenkins, a tough elder law attorney in Denver. Sarah reviewed the ledger and bank statements with a practiced eye. She explained that having power of attorney did not give my mother the right to treat Grandma's money as her personal piggy bank. "Power of attorney creates a fiduciary duty," Sarah explained. "Legally, Eleanor was obligated to use every penny strictly for Clara's care. We can file for a formal court accounting. If she can't justify $500,000 in transfers, this turns into a criminal elder exploitation case." Sarah looked at me intently. "You need to prepare yourself, Maya. If we go down this road, your mother could face severe criminal penalties." That night, as I sat staring at the ledger, I was 9 years old again, standing alone behind a school theater curtain, clutching a diploma, waiting for parents who never showed up. Every childhood memory instructed me to stay quiet, keep the peace, and not make trouble. Then I turned to the last page of Grandma Clara's ledger. Below her final entry, she had written in bold ink, "Showing up is the whole battle, sweetheart. Never let anyone quiet your voice when you are standing for the truth." I closed the book. Showing up didn't mean suffering in silence to protect toxic people. It meant standing up for the woman who had protected me my entire life. The next morning, I gave Sarah the green light to file the lawsuit. When the court summons hit my parents' mailbox, the peaceful mask shattered. Eleanor tried intimidation, sending furious texts, followed by crying voicemails, and finally, a desperate settlement offer through her attorney. On the morning of the preliminary hearing at the Denver County Courthouse, my mother cornered me in the hallway. She looked stressed, her designer clothes failing to mask her desperation. "Maya, drop the suit," she pleaded, reaching out to touch my arm. "We'll give you the mountain cottage and we'll return a portion of the funds. Let's fix this. You'll still have a mother." Sweetheart, that had been Grandma Clara's word of love. Hearing my mother try to manipulate me with fake affection felt like theft. I pulled my arm back and looked her straight in the eyes. "No." Inside the courtroom, Sarah presented Grandma Clara's Navy ledger alongside the official bank records, matching date against date, amount against amount, withdrawal against transfer. My mother's attorney tried to argue that the $520,000 had been used for caregiving reimbursements and living expenses, but they couldn't produce a single receipt, contract, or proof of service. The judge reviewed the exhibits carefully as I stood at the podium and read Grandma Clara's written words aloud to the court. "I am physically weak, not foolish." When Sarah announced to the judge that every single dollar recovered from the lawsuit would be placed into a charitable trust to fund care for isolated low-income seniors, my mother snapped. She stood up from the defense table, her face twisted in rage. "It was my money," Eleanor shouted, her voice echoing off the courtroom walls. "I earned every dime just for putting up with that old woman for all those years." The judge slowly set down his gavel, looking at my mother with absolute disdain. He ordered full restitution of the $520,000, added maximum statutory damages for bad faith breach of fiduciary duty, and formally referred the evidence to the district attorney's office for felony elder financial exploitation. Faced with overwhelming paper trail evidence, Eleanor eventually accepted a guilty plea to avoid a lengthy trial, serving 18 months in state prison. My father, who claimed he was unaware of the full scale of the theft, testified against her to secure probation. The distant relatives who had spent years making excuses for my mother's greed stopped reaching out to me entirely. I kept none of the recovered money for myself. With the court-ordered funds, Arthur and I officially established the Clara Vance Senior Care Fund. The foundation pays for non-emergency medical transportation, home care aides, and daily companion visits for isolated elderly individuals across Colorado who have no family left to look after them. Grandma Clara's mountain cottage was completely renovated and converted into a permanent respite home for vulnerable seniors recovering from medical procedures. On the day we officially handed over the keys to the local community board, my husband Ethan, our 8-year-old daughter Chloe, and I sat on the porch steps watching the sunset behind the Rocky Mountains. Before leaving, I replaced the old burned-out light bulb above the front door with a bright, warm lantern and left it switched on. Chloe looked up at me, her small hand slipping into mine. "Mommy, why are we leaving the light on if nobody is living here tonight?" "Because someone should always know they are expected, sweetheart," I told her, kissing her forehead. My mother had once called me a charity case, intending to wound me. She was almost right. I was raised by the purest form of charity, a grandmother who showed up every single day, stayed through the hardest winters, and loved without ever keeping score. Grandma Clara had sat in every single empty chair my parents had abandoned throughout my childhood, and when her own chair finally became empty, She gave me the strength to stand tall,